everybody. Welcome to Talking Flicks with the Chick. I am that chick, Kalani Harrelson. Yes, my government over on this channel. Okay. All right. So today, I know it's been a long time since I've been with you all. I had to get a new computer. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I am back, and I'm glad to be back talking about one of the best films, in my opinion, of 2025, and that is the Ryan Coogler's film Sinners. And before I get into the show and my special guest, have you guys checked out Funny Games? Have you checked it out yet? It's a Michael Short film that I wrote and directed here on this channel. So go ahead and check that out, okay? And also, we want you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you, cause this is for the movie nerds, okay? Movie heads, movie nerds, all of that. Because yes, I've done a very general review of the movie Sinners, but I wanted to really do like a deeper dive of the different symbolisms and the metaphors and just the layers that this movie possesses. And this is where we're going to do that. And this is for the movie heads, okay? Strictly for the movie heads. All right. So without further ado, I am going to bring up our guest. He is no stranger to this channel. And I mentioned the movie Funny Games. He was my cinematographer. Okay. So it's gonna be very interesting to hear some of his thoughts on the cinematography, the look of this movie. So without further ado, we're gonna welcome Alex Vaught to the stage. Hey,
Hey Kay,
Alex.
How you doing?
I am good. I am so ready to talk about this movie. And before I go on,
Hmm.
you guys, if you are hearing my fan, excuse my fan, okay? Because I don't know where you've been, but we've been having a heat wave over 90 degrees weather
Yeah,
here in, the Midwest. And I know it's been other places too. So it's hot.
yeah, it's a warmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's warm. So, Alex,
Hmm.
just tell the people who have not seen you on the show before, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So my name is Alex Vaught. I have two little companies, AV3 Media Works and AV3 Art. So I do. I've done some reviews on my website. I have them on my website for AV3 Media Works. I've done some videography and short films, and then on AV3 Art, I do portrait art. So those are just some of the things I do. I'm a creative at heart. I plan on expanding that quite a bit in the near
Okay.
future. And so I will say I absolutely love film. I love the mechanics of film. I love everything about film. I know a lot about, different actors and actresses and directors, their styles of acting, shooting. I'm just really, since I've been a kid, I've just really have loved the art of film and filmmaking,
Mhm.
and particularly storytelling and script writing. I mean, because it's really starts with the story, right? If you give
Yes.
us a good story, you can play to not only a targeted audience, but you can really get more of a broad audience. And that's, I think, what Sinners has done. And I think that's what Coogler has done. Him and Jordan have, it's been a very polarizing film, And so I think that's what I love about the power of film. And I always have is that if you do everything right, and in the right timing, you're going to strike gold. So, but yeah, that's just a bit about me. So.
Okay. And you know what? With Ryan Coogler, it's hard to believe like this is only what his fifth film.
Yes, yeah, it's amazing. He's had an amazing run these past 15, 20 years.
Amazing run.
Yeah, and I mean, I've loved each and every project, starting with Fruitvale Station, and then of course Black Panther and Creed,
Yes.
and Sinners, and so I think he's had a really good run, and I think him and Michael B are doing quite well together in their collaborations, and I think this one they knocked this one out of the park, particularly because it's an original piece.
Yes.
All of his other pieces have been projects, part of projects that we already have known have been in
Exactly.
existence. And this one, as he stated, is quite a bit more of a passion project, and you can see that within the film. I mean, he pays great homage to just film itself, and then he kind of really gives us some insight on the freedom that you have as a black filmmaker. It tells in the writing, you can tell in the choice selection of cast, everybody he chose in the cast is people that he's wanted to work with for a long time. And then
Mm-hmm.
he really he works well with his wife behind the scenes. She's one of the producers
Mm-hmm.
on it.
Yeah.
And I think all of this is just a perfect mix for a really good product. And I think that's what we've received here. And it has been polarizing, though. I will say, and I'm sure you've seen that, on social media. The church community has been up in arms about it. And, you'll help.
What happened? They always up in arms about something.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, this one in particular, because it delves into some of the, the voodoo stuff, and then
The
there's
hoodoo
the
and
hoodoo.
yeah,
Yep. And there's a spiritual aspect there that, has some conflicting things going on. And then, of course, the title itself is not, I guess, very appealing, so, and I understand that. I do. I'm a
yeah,
lover of film, so I don't take offense. I mean, I'm a child of God, a child of the church.
same.
Yeah, yep. And so, but I don't take offense to it. I don't give it certain content any excuse or pass. But I think for me, Kay, I just love that we as filmmakers, we get to have that creativity and that voice through our film, and you can put out original content like that, and people hear it and see it. They see what you're talking about. You can kind of give them history lessons if you want. You put some of your own perspective, in the film, and I just love the freedom in that. And I think he took great liberty here to show us, a passion project. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
said he's a fan of horror film, like like we are, which is great.
Exactly.
Yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
loves the horror film genre, and that shows quite well. And then
It
he just
does.
loves, yep, and then he just loves film. I mean, this film was shot absolutely beautifully. I mean, if you
It
can,
was.
yeah, if you don't like it for anything else, you have to admit that it is an actual, absolutely beautiful film. In the way that it was
Yeah.
shot. You have your lights and your darks, and it's a dark, ominous film, obviously. But the first half of it, the set pieces, the characters, and then the costume design, all of it meshes very well together, especially as a period piece. And
It
so I
does.
think, yeah, I think a lot of the thought that went into this, it just won't go unnoticed. And so I think that's what I take away from the film, is just the sheer magnitude of the film at a $90 million budget, and then the creativity that was used here. So, yeah, that's my feeling on it.
The great takeaway this from this film, and I echo some of the sentiments that a lot of people are saying, like it's an instant classic
Yeah,
and it's a masterpiece.
I agree.
I really believe it is
Yeah,
a masterpiece.
yeah, I agree.
I've seen it 3 times.
Hmm.
And the first time I saw it in the theater, and we're going to go over this too, but
Hmm.
I cried at a
Hmm.
particular scene
Hmm.
because I felt this movie made me feel. And I
Yeah.
love artists, what be it filmmakers, musicians, whether they sing or play an instrument.
Hmm.
I admire those and I love those that make me feel,
Yeah.
and this movie made me feel.
Yeah.
I was all in my feels. and um and I agree with you. The cinematography, the look of the film was great. I love the colors. I love a director, but not just a director, but a writer, because he wrote this one as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
So I love, because as a writer myself,
Hmm.
I love where you are taking time for like the details, like the color theories,
Yeah.
the different colors, because in color, the color theory in film,
Hmm.
of course, different for those who may not know.
Hmm.
Um, Different colors convey different emotions.
Exactly.
It conveys like, it alerts you like what's to come. Like the color red, can signify danger, passion,
Yes.
love. Just all those things. And throughout the film, he was using reds and blues and some whites. And um, I love how he just was really authentic in
Hmm.
what he was writing,
Yes.
because I did read about him using real Choctaw members of that tribe from
Yes.
Mississippi.
Yes.
They were real Choctaw Native Americans,
That's beautiful. I love that.
isn't it?
Yeah, I love
And and I love how this he had like twin consultants that he conferred with, in the writing process and on set. So
it. Yeah.
Michael B can, get that. Just I love that. I love hearing that because that's what makes a film, in my opinion, great.
Yeah. Yeah. And you speak on authenticity. I agree. I think when you have those real aspects on set, it really transfers quite well over to the
Hmm.
screen. And I mean, really, really a big shout out to Michael B because honestly, in the film, I really forgot that it was one guy playing that role.
Right.
Seriously. I mean, when you think about it, like if you look at that, he played two different characters
Two different characters.
and he mastered it. I mean, I think he really leveled up in his craft on
Oh,
the screen.
most definitely. And I've
Yeah.
said this in my review and
Mhm.
just to conversations with other people who loves film. I said Michael B to me, he's always been a good actor.
Yes. Yep.
But for me, I always saw, like, how they say they see Denzel in all the movies.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
always saw Michael B, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep. Yep.
But in this film, I said,
Hmm.
oh, he did his thing because he really stretched himself
Hmm.
as an actor. I think this is his best role yet.
Yes, I agree. And I think
This is
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, and this has kind of always been my theory. Sometimes an actor is a lot of times just as good or only as good as the director. But I think in this case, he has an excellent director, but he embodied both characters
Hmm.
quite well. I would say. I think uh, just his ability to give nuance to two different personalities and just really bring that across on the screen. I think he did that quite well, and I
He
think the
did.
director, I think Coogler wrote the characters well. I think him and Michael B have a good relationship to
They
where
do.
he
Good
knows
chemistry.
the chemistry. Yeah, he knows that actor's abilities and he knows how to push that actor in the direction that where we get the best performance. And I would
Hmm.
say by and far, this is his probably best performance. I mean, I love the Creed films. I
Oh, I
love,
love Creed, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
but
but
this one
just
right here, yeah.
yes, ju- just for the sheer challenge of it, though. I mean, you have to constantly switch in your mind between two different people while on set, and so
Hmm.
that's got to be wild, wild ride,
Right.
you know.
And they were two different twins,
Yes,
and yeah, he like you said, he really leveled up in this, and I my hat is off, my red fedora off to him, you know.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and everybody else in the cast. I mean, everybody brought their A
Mm.
game. Delroy Lindo.
Oh,
I think, yeah,
Delroy is just good. He's
yeah,
good, and he's a good character actor.
yep.
He's good in whatever he plays
Whatever you
in, and
put in
he's
the
very
show,
versatile. I love him.
you cannot go wrong with Delroy.
You
And I
can't go
think,
wrong with Delroy.
yep, and I think, like what Coogler said, Coogler, this is one actor that he's always wanted to work with, and I'm glad he
Mm,
was able to get him, schedule wise, because if you have Delroy on your film, I mean, you don't have to say anything else. I mean, the audience is going to come,
yep.
and I think for this, he obviously delivered above and beyond, just like everybody else. I think that the actress that played I forget her name right now. She was
Annie,
Annie. Yeah, yeah. I've seen her in a few other
um,
things. Yeah,
Wumi,
Wumi.
Mosaku.
Yes, I've seen her in a few other things. But what I liked, and I was telling my wife and my friends last night because we were watching it again, and we are kind of analyzing it. What I liked about her performance is that, and I know her performance and the content of her performance is what brought some criticism, from the church. But what I liked about her performance is that it was very nuanced. It wasn't too much, it was very believable, in that she was somebody that came from this era of people that believed in these practices,
Mm-hmm.
and in all honesty, she was attempting to use it for good. I mean, her goal was
Exactly.
to just protect the brothers, particularly Smoke,
the people
who
that she cares about, people that
exactly,
she loved, and she wanted to help, of course, like with her little store,
yep,
help others too. So it wasn't like
exactly.
she was using it for evil.
Exactly, and even to the point where she didn't have all the answers, and she wasn't trying to do anything too out of pocket. Like, because
Right.
Smoke asked her, why couldn't you bring our baby back? And she was just simply like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, and even with the vampires, she knew of that stuff, but she never seen one. So she's heard of,
In a horror story, there's always that one person that
yep,
knows the background
they
and
just
stuff.
know. Yep, they just know. And it was cool with her because what I like about her acting is she can kind of just walk that line of, I'm just a regular individual that, I'm in this world, I'm in this
Hmm.
character, but it wasn't really ever too much. I don't feel like anything was being pushed on us as far as any belief systems. I feel like the way Kugler wrote her character, it gave us some insight onto some of the practices and beliefs of the certain people that ended up on these plantations back then, you know.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I liked about her character.
She Wumi, it was the first time that I've seen her that I know about
Hmm.
in something.
Yeah,
She was my MVP
yeah,
of the movie. I really loved her character.
yeah,
Um Again, every horror movie has to have that one person that knows the history of things, and
yeah,
and knows the answers to how to get rid of certain like spirits or monsters or whatever
exactly.
the case may be, and she was that person.
Yeah,
And she was practicing like a West African practice. It's called
mhm.
hoodoo. They
Okay,
say it's kind of similar to like voodoo, but it's hoodoo.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, Annie's character, Annie, I loved her character, and she had a
yeah,
very comical moment in one of the scenes when they were trying to figure out if anyone amongst them was a vampire, and they had to eat the garlic. And
yeah,
remember, that's one of my favorite scenes.
yeah,
It seemed like it was improvised. I need to
yeah,
read the script to see
yeah,
if it was
right.
when Delroy took a bite, and he started, like, and she was like,
Yeah.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
Right, right. That was hilarious. Yeah, yeah. That was funny.
Right.
They weren't
So,
sure. I mean, we were like, what's going on here?
right.
You know,
But yeah, like everybody, like even like Miles,
Miles Kate,
Miles Caton, the
Caton,
one
yeah,
that plays Sammy,
yeah.
perfect casting for me.
He was, and this is his
His
first role. This
his
is his
first
first.
role. Yeah,
Yeah,
because the musician, her, I love her.
yeah.
She encouraged him to try out for it.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's
they actually have a song together.
okay.
And yeah, he knocked it out the park. I love the texture of his voice. He's perfect for
Yeah,
like a blues singer.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
And I heard that he worked with a acting coach from Yale.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah. So for this being his first film, he knocked it out the park, and I'm really excited to see what he does next.
And likewise. I mean, he's a very gifted young man. I mean, he can
Mhm.
play, he can sing, and now he can act. I mean, he can add that to his resume.
Yep.
And what a way to burst onto the acting scene in a film like this. So definitely, hats off to him. I wanted to say one other thing about Annie's character.
Yeah.
What I like about characters that are written this way, Kay, is that she kind of gives us a little bit of a balance between, like, she's like the intermediate, I think, between the audience and the film. Like, she helps us
Yeah.
understand maybe some of the weird stuff that's going on in the film, and it kind of adds that level of authenticity and believability about that world of that film, through that character, through the eyes of that character. Because while she didn't have all the answers, we were kind of seeing the film a little bit through her eyes too,
Mhm.
in that, like, I know some of this stuff, but what's
Yeah,
going on.
especially with her narrating, like in the beginning,
Yes,
and during the musical montage
yes,
scene.
yes,
So yeah, it was. Yeah, I can see it being like certain parts being from her POV.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can
exactly.
see
So
that.
yes, that made her character very interesting character.
It did.
I think the Jack O'Connell, I think he played
Mm,
Remick. Yeah, he's Remick. So he was phenomenal because I think he
mm,
embodied a lot of the complexities of that character.
yes.
I read some interviews and commentary about his role with that character, and he was a complex character because he had some passions there. I think for his past and his past that was lost when he was immortal, and I think he was trying to regain that.
Mm-hmm.
Through evil intentions and taking from others, but he was trying to recapture something by using Sammy's gift, by
Mm-hmm.
taking what his gift was. I believe it was kind of conjuring and what it could do from a spiritual realm. I think he wanted to take the beauty of that gift and use it for evil. Is
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, based on what I was reading, and that's how when Sammy's voice penetrated the juke joint and went through the ceiling and out into the field there,
Mm-hmm.
he heard it and it resonated with him, and he was like, "Oh, we got to get in there." So
Right, right. I need this.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, I gotta have it. And so I think that is a powerful scene because think about it, the way the montage, Annie's voice in the montage was saying, it's like our gift and with music can be used for good as well as
Healing
for evil.
and conjuring spirits, as she said.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and ultimately, that's what happened that night. Is it,
Yeah, it was.
it brought that evil spirit in and just wreaked havoc. And it's I look at it, Kay. What I like about the film also, it's kind of a moral lesson there. With what we invite into our lives. From a spiritual level. And so, I think if you could take anything away from it positive, especially for the our religious community,
Mm-hmm.
is that you definitely can look at it as just be mindful of what you invite in, because in the vampire world and films, we all know that they can't get into your house unless you invite
Unless
them.
they invited. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's the same with evil practices and things in the spiritual world for our own personal lives in real life. We have to just be mindful of what we invite in, and because that could be the result. And I think Sammy's dad, the preacher, Jedediah, was trying to, that's what he was trying to tell him.
That's what he was trying to tell them.
Yep, you play with the devil, and one day he's gonna follow you home. And ultimately, we see in the end that's pretty much what occurred, because when the older Sammy, played by, I think it was Buddy Guy,
But he, yep.
um, yeah, they ultimately came back to see about him.
Right.
Mary and Stack. So
Stack.
yeah, so they did come back around, and but obviously they didn't do anything. They gave him a choice in his fate at that point. But and I think Stack's character ultimately always loved and respected his music anyway. So
He did.
all through the decades. So yeah,
Yeah, he did. 'Cause he said he always collected, his records and things of that nature. But I
yeah,
want to go back to what you said about, be careful about what we invite in, because
yes,
that's what I love about this movie, because it's multi-layered.
yes,
Because you got that spiritual metaphor,
hmm,
and for me, the very in your face, because a lot of the symbolisms it was he wanted you to get, like, it's in your face,
yeah,
like the whole, like the colonization of
yeah,
things,
yeah, exactly,
especially our music,
yes,
and I'm sitting there, the first time, the first watch,
hmm,
and I'm thinking that's what I got from my, the first watch on,
hmm,
and how a lot of times, because I love hip hop, I've
yeah,
always
same
loved
here,
hip hop. I'm a hip hop
same here.
head,
Me too.
and I still listen to hip hop to this day. One of my favorites is Kendrick Lamar. He's my current goat. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
Kendrick Lamar,
yeah.
and that whole the musical montage when I was watching it, and that's where I was. That just had me just crying. Just
It's a
I
powerful
just
scene,
it was powerful, and then
man.
reminded me of Kendrick's one of his newer songs on his new album GNX. It
Mhm.
reminds me of his song Reincarnated,
Okay.
and because he tells the story how because he had he's done therapy, and he did
Mhm.
like past life regression,
Mhm.
and like he believes, like in his past lives he was different people, trying to get it right,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but again, I'm a hip hop head, and
Hmm.
we always talk about like in the community that I belong to, and I watch like different content creators, like I'm even like moderators in some
Hmm.
of these huge channels, and we always talking about how we have to gatekeep.
Yeah.
We have to gatekeep our certain things, and one of the things is being is our music,
Yeah.
because a lot of people that's from the outside, they come in, they get what they
Hmm.
want,
Hmm.
and then they use it all up, and then they
Yeah.
go elsewhere, they deny like where they start, like
Hmm.
your Tommy Richardsons, your Post Malones, and all of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that again, that was one of the blatant messages
Hmm.
that I believe that Ryan was portraying, because he loves the music as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And because I read that the inspiration for this movie came from his Uncle James,
Yes. Yeah.
who loved, who was from the SIP, and he loved Delta blues, and he used
Yes.
to tell him stories of like their family and things that was going down in their nature, and that's like one of the main inspirations for this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but yeah, like that whole like this being cautious of who you let in,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
is
very
that
important.
that's a very deep um message there.
It's very layered too, and I mean it's very relevant for us all just in our lives. And I think it's really important because when you talk about gatekeeping and stuff like that, I think we have to be careful of who we allow to become the curators of our arts,
Mhm.
because they'll just steal it from you and sell it back to you, and that's
Mhm.
literally all that happens.
Mhm.
And they come in and say, we want to work with you, we want to collaborate with you, and then next thing you know, you're out, and then
Right.
you're somewhere selling your catalog, and
Right.
you
Because
don't
you still have people believing that country music belongs to white people.
exactly, exactly. Yep, exactly. That's a perfect example.
You
You know,
know.
yeah. And so I think that we have to talk about that scene alone though. When the camera pans around and we get a historical,
A single shot. That was a single
yeah,
shot.
yeah. And you know what? He said that took a while to really put that together.
I can
Because it
believe
was,
it.
yeah, a single shot to get all of that and get it right. And so we're given historical lessons on the contributions of black artists, in music.
Yes.
And I think that's going to go down in cinematic history as one of the great scenes in film. It really is
Yes.
just that, that transition and just showing our contributions as a people from back in way back in probably the 1800s, 1700s, all the way up into present times.
Mhm.
I think that really it really pays homage to our contributions, and I think that's the power of that scene.
It is.
Yeah, and so
It is. And
yeah,
and I like how they had, again, that to learn that that was just one shot, and they said of course they had to have like rehearsal after rehearsal after
right,
rehearsal,
right.
because you had, you know, just the blocking alone.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes. It's incredible. I
Whew.
mean, he's a brilliant filmmaker. I know he went to film school and everything, but just to have that eye and that forethought and that planning to get that right, and have everybody on the team understand that this is how we want it to look.
Mhm.
And then the way it came out was just flawless. I mean, that scene
Mhm.
alone is just flawless. So I really enjoyed that. And I think that definitely is the climax of the film. We kind of, after that, we get to the dark side of things,
Yeah.
and we see kind of the demise. Everybody starts getting picked off, starting
Right.
starting with Mary, which
Ugh.
Mary's character was interesting because I
Mary's
think,
character was controversial too.
very controversial, but think about it like this, like the history of people that are trying to pass, black
Mhm.
people that try and pass. And I think her character ultimately thought that she could use her gift of passing to go and see what these people are about, let them in, because I know ultimately she wanted to help Smoke and Stack make
Yeah.
some money that night, right? And so she wanted to. She said, "Hey, let me go see what they're about. Maybe we can get them come in if they're friendly enough and get some money off of them." But that worked against her. Her trying to pass and using that. I can pass and kind of talk to them in their language. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
work out for her, obviously. And so,
it,
yeah, you
it
know,
didn't. And um I'm just looking at my notes here.
sure.
So like speaking of Mary, like I was saying, it was a lot of controversy
Hmm.
surrounding her character because her character, like you were saying, she was passing.
Hmm.
There's according to the story, she was like
Hmm.
an eighth
Yeah.
African American because her granddaddy was biracial, half
Yes.
black. So
Yes.
back in those days, though, that's around Jim Crow and all of that.
Yeah.
Even one drop,
Yep. Yeah.
you're black.
Exactly.
So a lot of people were saying that what were they saying? A lot of people were saying that they were getting from that scene, or they didn't like from her some of the issues now, like with this one. I'm like, okay, y'all,
Yeah.
she white woman always trying to bring down the black man. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had that, and then
Mm.
you had the they saying that she was kind of controlling. She just went ahead and bit Stack without his um they said without his consent, but he kind of
Yeah. Stack played a role in that relationship with Mary. I
he
mean,
did.
yeah,
He did. It's not,
yeah,
it wasn't just her, you
yeah.
know.
I think the argument about a Caucasian woman, taking black men always have a choice in that, and so
Exactly.
and even when they were making out when that happened, so it's like she kind of had his consent. She just kind of tricked him. She got the best of him
Yeah.
and did
Yeah.
what vampires do. I mean, it's
Right,
not like
right. Turn you,
yeah, she was no at that point she was no longer married. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, she did what because her whole thing was obviously before they ran out of the room, we're gonna kill you all tonight. So I mean, she wasn't married anymore. She was talking through Remick was talking through her,
Yes.
you know.
And and going back to the scene when she went out to meet with them, because this movie, it was like a period, it was different genres and whatnot,
Yes,
which I
thank you.
love.
I loved it.
Period piece,
I love
somewhat
it.
musical,
Yes,
horror,
yes.
some
It had
sci-fi.
everything. Yep, it had everything for any, for a lot of audiences.
Yeah, and that song that they were singing, because it was
Mhm.
just so beautiful when she walked out there. Um, now let me see. I don't want to get it wrong. It was called but
Yeah.
anyway, that I looked it up because
Mhm.
the different songs. I'm like, okay, what does this mean?
Right.
Because I'm trying to get in his head, like, why did he pick this song
Yeah.
for this particular scene?
Right.
So for that scene, it was the Scottish and Irish song.
Will ye
And
go, lassie, go?
yes,
Yeah. Will ye go, lassie, go?
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's basically of this guy courting this woman.
Yeah.
He's trying to invite her.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
like, ah, I
Yeah.
was like, I
Yep.
like that, Ryan.
That was
Because that's
clever.
what they were trying to do for Mary. They're trying to court her and woo her and invite her,
Yep.
to be, in the vampire gang.
Yeah.
So
That's clever. I mean, I'm gonna tell you something. There's so much in this film that has meaning. It's almost as if there's nothing that is like by coincidence. I mean, it's a lot of
yeah.
thought because what I read about Ryan Coogler, he's a very intelligent man, and he even the guys that went to school, went to college with him, everything they said while everybody else was out partying and stuff, this guy was studying and reading.
Hmm.
And so that lets you know right there for the content that he put in this film, little things like that right there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
who would think of that? And yeah, that is it's like a Scottish hymn about a man inviting a young lady to the Highlands to court her. It's a level of seduction in the song itself.
Yes.
And the two actors that are along with Remick are actual real singers in real life.
Yes.
They actually sing in real life. So I think that scene was it was cast very. I mean, it was shot very well because you feel the it's like an evil presence, and it's a loneliness for Mary, unfortunately, because she just loses her mother, And the way Remick was working in that scene, he was working the way probably Satan, we would think Satan would work, in that he tried to tempt her. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
could have got to your mother and helped her out, before she passed, and things like that. Really trying to
Right.
seduce her soul
Yeah.
into trust,
Yep.
and that was a powerful scene just for that.
That
And
was a scene, and because the scene prior, remember when they was trying to get into the Club Juke,
yeah,
they were singing, a song. They was covering that Robin pick
pick poor
poor
Robbie
Robin
clean.
clean.
Yep.
So that originally, that's from that's a black woman
Hmm.
back in the day. How during it was like during the rock and roll doo-wop age,
Yeah.
where the black artists, they have the song, and then the white people will cover it and it sound all corny and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that particular scene, 'cause they was like, cause it did sound kind of all corny,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
wasn't theirs.
Yeah.
But the one that they were singing, that one was more beautiful because that was actually their culture,
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
And they attempted to use it in a way it's like they were auditioning to get into the juke.
Right.
And they tried to sing it in a way to say, we want to appeal to you. And if you think
Hmm.
about it, the only two people that was really feeling it at that moment were Stack and Cornbread, and ultimately they're like among the ones that got bit
They
first.
got, yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So that was unfortunate for them.
Right. And
But
speaking of cornbread,
uh-huh.
because he was, I'm like, Ryan, I see you,
Uh-huh.
because he was in Life.
Uh-huh. Oh
Remember, he
yeah,
was
that's
he
right.
was
That's
he was in
true.
Life, and remember
Yeah.
Bernie Mac's character always saying cornbread. Get my
Yes.
cornbread.
I
So I
forgot
was like,
about
oh,
that.
okay, yeah,
That's pretty good. Yeah. See that, Kate. That's how you see that this is like a love letter to film. All those little nods to different things.
yes.
So yeah.
Because another nod that I actually missed, but I saw it in when I was doing my research, when Sammy was at the when he was grown up,
Hmm.
buddy guy, he's playing Sammy,
Yeah.
and Stack and
Mary.
Mary
Mary.
came.
Yeah.
That was October 16th, 1992.
Hmm.
And that was Ryan was playing a trip homage to Candyman. That's when Candyman came out.
Oh wow, that's right. Yeah.
It's another horror movie with Black history roots in it,
Exactly.
and it was also set in Chicago.
That is something. Another one that I read. I love that one. See, I didn't know that one. So the film takes place in 1932, right?
Yep.
The prior year, 1931, is when the first like Dracula film came out. Then the
Mm,
film ends in 1992. That same year, Bram Stoker's Dracula came out.
mm,
So I think he's been doing a little bit of research, kind of
mm-hmm,
playing around with things. But I forgot
mm-hmm.
Candyman came out in '92 also. So
Yep, October 16th, and that was the year that flashed, when we saw Sammy at his club, Perline's.
and Perline was the young lady that he was with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he always loved her, and of course she got bit. So yeah, and
Right.
died in the sun out there. So
Right.
yeah.
Another thing I found out too, I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of." So I knew this from this film.
Hmm.
The correlation with the Chinese.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
like the Childs, the last name
Charles.
Bo and Grace Child.
Yep. Child.
You
Yep.
know how they own like the grocery stores and all of that. One side was Jim Crow,
Yes.
32. So one
Yes.
side was the white side, one side was the
Yes.
black side.
Exactly. Yep.
And yeah, and I like how Ryan, when we first the daughter, because after Smoke shot
Yeah.
the two men,
Yeah.
he told, to run and get Bo told Lisa to, go get your mother,
Hmm.
because they wanted to do some deals. And so I like how the Ryan wanted us to know, like, okay, this is something that you should pay attention to, because we were
Yes.
following
I love
Lisa
that.
across the street.
Yep.
And I didn't know prior to the film that there's a lot of, like, Chinese Americans who was like I guess, they also sold to us during that time, and the white people,
Mm.
as well. But what I didn't know that during that time, because Ryan is very good on. He even mentioned it. He's very good on black ownership. Remember when Stack and
Mhm.
Smoke, they was like, for us by us. I said, okay, Fubu.
Nice. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. That was great.
Right. So, because back in that time, because even Smoke spoke to it to Sammy. Was it Mound Bayou?
I believe so. I do
Mound
believe.
Bayou. It's
Yeah.
in my notes somewhere.
Mhm.
But that was a place where it's black owned. It was like Mount, and that was a real place, Mound
Yeah.
Bayou. It was
Mhm.
like a black Wall Street, because it was
Mhm.
actually prior to Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
Where we had our own businesses, our own institutions, and all of that.
Yes.
So that was happening at that time. So, but
Mhm.
in real life, um the white people kind of wanted to put a stop to that, because we were becoming very successful. So they would purchase the stores and everything for the Chinese to
Mhm.
put in our black neighborhoods, because
Mm.
at that time, when segregation was came to be,
Mhm.
a lot of our people were like, they like, we're gonna go shop over here now, and a
Right.
lot of our things, dissipated, because they were allowed to shop elsewhere, and not supporting our own.
Right.
So yeah, so I was like, wow, that's crazy that
That is
they
really deep.
would buy the grocery stores. They didn't let the Chinese own it. Now it's like, you still
Right.
underneath us,
Right.
but you're a little bit above them, above
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't flourish. I was like, wow.
Man. And you know what? That created a strained relationship between the black community and the Chinese
Mm-hmm.
community because of that, that type of a setup, from a business standpoint. And I feel like that kind of exists still today, you know,
Mm.
that strained relationship. You have different of those types of restaurants in the black community. They'll serve you, but they don't want to really probably be bothered with you outside of that. So that's
Right.
just been some of my some of my experiences. So, but yeah, but I really enjoyed the progression in the film. After Sammy's musical performance in the jig joint, as we kind of spiral down, and ultimately what we find too, Kay, is that Hogwood, the Grand
Mm.
Dragon that sold the juke to them, they were gonna kill everybody there, anyway. So even if the vampires hadn't have come at all, the clan were still gonna come. And so that's
Yep.
that's kind of why I liked how the brothers were like, oh man, you forgot the gray box, and at the end
Right.
you got that gray box, and took care of business, but what we also kind of get some foreshadowing is so, like, when they first bought the juke from Hogwood, they were like, why are these floors so clean,
Yep.
and so that suggests that this is what the clan do. They'll sell it.
Yep.
They sell it to people, and then it's like a killing house,
Yep.
pretty much. And so that's kind of a little bit of the foretelling. And then I'm sure you noticed this too. We had 3 scenes where we had birds flying in the background. So the first scene is with Hogwood while they were at the jug joint. The second scene is at Bert and his wife's house when Remick runs to the house to smoke. It's 3 birds flying in the air. And as that scene ends, when the Choctaw leave, those birds land on that house. And then the third scene was at the Juke again. I think they were flying around again. And
Mm.
so it all gives us a foreshadowing of that death is near in each of those
Mm-hmm.
scenes. It's guaranteed. And I also read at that house, because we noticed this, um, for Bert and his wife, when Remick got in that house, there's a crib in the back room where Bert gets killed and
Yeah. Yep.
transformed. And there's a deleted scene I read that um, shows that Bert and his wife, they wanted to have children. They were having problems having children, and so they were trying to prepare for that. And of course, that didn't happen because Remick and
Right.
everything. But that was actually their backstory. They were trying to prepare to eventually have children and grow their family. But
And plus,
uh,
they were clans people too. So
exactly.
we saw their hoods and all of
Yep.
that.
We saw their hood, and then I also read that in that scene. Also, this is the last thing I'll say about that scene. is that the way Remick jumps into the scene and runs towards the house,
Yeah.
it gives us a little foreshadowing that he actually can fly because he actually landed. That's what that was, like a landing, and then he
Yeah, there
runs
was a
towards.
landing.
Yep, it
Yeah.
was a hard landing.
It was
Because at
hard.
first, right at first, I thought he was running through that field of high tall grass or whatever. But I
Mm.
come to find out, that it was actually him. It was showing that he landed. He had to
Yeah,
fly
he
from.
just he just planted. He just landed there. Yeah.
Yep, because he had to fly to get away from the Choctaw. Because what I think happened there was, in the history between the Choctaw Indian community and the Irish community, is they had a good relationship during that era. They had a good relationship on that land, and I think with Remick, he was an Irishman, I guess, in his mortal life, and he probably was posing as one of the members of that community, and then he got exposed, and the Choctaw found out that he's a monster, you know, and they came after him. And I think it would be a great sequel. I know Coogler said he doesn't plan on doing one, but it would
No,
be
yeah.
a great sequel or prequel to really just delve into the Choctaw Indian story as
That
it's
backstory.
the backstory as it centers
Mhm.
around how they discovered the vampires and how they dealt with it in their community. Because this film shows more how the black people probably have dealt with it, through Annie's character. But
Mhm.
the Choctaw, if we can get that story, I think that would be powerful.
Yeah, that would be. And I always find it the correlation between like whatever vampire. Like I'm a Twilight. I love Twilight. So
Uh-huh.
you have the vampires, and the Native Americans.
Yeah,
They're like always like at war.
exactly.
That's
Yes.
I find that very interesting.
Yep.
But regarding Remick, there's an Easter egg. Oh, I don't know if you heard of this of the Spotify page.
Yes, I did read about that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this for those who don't know, like on the Sinners soundtrack on their Spotify page, they have like three newspaper clippings. They give us like some background,
Yeah.
on Stack and Smoke and Remick. So
Yeah.
back one of the newspaper clippings suggests that Remick was around since like 1911
Yeah.
because
In
that's when
America. Yeah.
his ship from Ireland came over and it was like a lot of bodies and stuff because in blood. I'm
Yeah.
thinking they he was feasting or whatever may
Yeah.
what have you. So we know that he's from an earlier time because too going back to the scene with Mary and Remick and the crew, his
Mhm.
crew, Burton. I forgot the young lady's name, his
Mhm.
wife.
Yeah.
But he gave her, gold coins that she's never seen before. So that was
Exactly.
from that time period. With Remick, yeah, I also heard somewhere that it's believed that he was married because we do see a wedding ring like when
Oh
he was
yeah.
mortal. And I
Yeah.
think that the Choctaw, what I heard is that they hunted, I guess killed his wife.
Oh wow, that'd be interesting. It would be amazing to see a film about that. And it's Bert and Lois is the couple's name. Bert and
Lois.
Lois. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be interesting to see that in a story. Just Remick's whole backstory, and then the how he came upon the Choctaw community. I think that in
Hmm.
and of itself would be make for a great film. But yeah, a lot of the little nods to historical references in this film, I think, are what make it a very hearty meal for the audience. Because you get the different genres, but then you get a
Hmm.
very rich period piece that has a lot of authenticity to it.
Yeah.
And I think
And I,
that's
and I like I like how he's not like in a box. Like he's letting other
right,
filmmakers know, like you don't have to just stick to one particular genre. You can
right.
mix them up when done, and written correctly.
Yes, yes, yeah, exactly. And it takes a lot of work, especially I think in this era, okay, to do original content, really good
Oh,
original content that's not really
a
using,
remake.
yeah, remake or a sequel or a prequel or anything Marvel or DC. You want to be able to make something that you can say is on your film resume, like this is something I actually wrote. and,
Yes.
and it's fine to use different genres that are some of your favorite genres. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think we have in this film we have a love story between two couples, like forbidden love for Stack and Mary, and then for Annie and Smoke. You know, they have a broken hearted love because they lost a child
Mm-hmm.
in their union, and for Stack and Mary, it's forbidden, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
he loves her, but she appears to be a white woman, so that just wouldn't work, but
Exactly.
he always try to protect her because he cared for her. So
Yeah.
we have that love story, and that can bring in an audience there, and then
And then we
obviously.
had the sacrifice from, even though people
Mhm.
hated Grace and what
Uh-huh.
she did, but I can
Yeah,
understand that,
yeah,
because she sacrificed her and Bo's life for
yeah.
their daughter.
Your daughter, exactly. She sure did.
You, you
Yeah.
know.
So yeah, but a lot of people probably didn't like her character
Oh, and I mean,
because
I didn't either. So
yeah,
she was like, "Come on in,"
I
I'm like,
know.
ah.
Yep. She she started the war. So yeah, and then old Slim had to sacrifice himself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Um,
And I got one of my questions answered because on my third watch, because remember when Stack was telling Sammy about the story of Stack and Smoke's father, he was like, I'm
yes.
older now, so you can tell me. So
Hmm.
he was saying that Stack always got beat
Yeah.
and abused by their father, and and Smoke killed him.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, dang, why he just beating up on one of the twins?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I found that out because Mary said, her mother delivered, the twins.
Yes. Yes. I remember that part.
So Stack was the second born and he was sideways.
Hmm.
So the mother, had to turn him around and all of that. So their mother died in childbirth. So
Wow.
the dad probably blamed Stack for
Got
killing his wife.
I got you. Wow.
I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because
Yeah,
I was
that's
like, why is he
deep.
just beating up on one?
Exactly. Just hammering on them. Yeah.
Right.
Oh man.
But it was so, and to me, and then when he was telling that story, because Stack seemed more of em- empathetic,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
and more in tunes like with his emotions than
Yeah.
Smoke. Smoke is so cold,
He was just cold.
um, real cold. That's why he was in blue,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Stack was in red because yes, he had a hot temper, all that, but
Mhm.
also he was emotional,
Mhm.
he was passionate about the people that he loved, and
Right.
even in telling Sammy about his dad, even though he was getting wailed on, he was like, he probably didn't mean it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
That's
like,
great.
wow.
Forgiving. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think man, it's really beautiful how he gives layers to these characters. I mean, they have
Mhm.
rich history. I mean, and you feel, and I'm sure some people that look at the film say they can relate on some level to at least one of the characters in the film. And it's more than just because some people can just look at it as a horror film. It's definitely
And
not just.
I don't really see it as a horror film. Like,
I
cuz
don't
like I
even.
said, it encompasses so much. It's
Yeah,
much more than a horror film.
it's much more than a horror film, and then the vampires are definitely more of a metaphor than the
Yes.
center. They're not the center of the film. I feel like they were used as a metaphor for something deeper that we as a people, our people, can definitely relate to, as it relates
Yes,
to
for like, like
gentrification.
a system,
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
systemic racism type system, or
exactly.
oppression,
Yes,
yeah.
and they also represent the desire to take from our people, take
Yes.
our, because Remick literally said it. I want your music. You know,
Yeah.
he literally said that to him when he at the end when he was beating Sammy up. I think that was the scene where he was like, "I want your music," and he kind of was roughing Sammy up because he could have just killed Sammy very quickly, but he
Mhm.
took his time with him. Because it's like, it was almost as if he kind of admired his gift. And he wanted to give him
He
like a
did,
slow dance or
because
something.
you know what? I think he admired his gift because we all know that Sammy was like it was explained in the beginning of the film by Annie.
Hmm.
I've always heard, because I knew about the griots. They said griots in the movie,
Hmm.
but I
Yeah.
always pronounce it as griots.
Right.
But I believe that Remick himself was a griot, because remember, well, not a
Hmm.
griot, but in his, I forgot what they called the Irish storytellers, because she
Hmm.
was breaking down those who tell stories through music, from generations to generations, from the
Yes.
Irish,
Yes.
the West Africans, and the Choctaws.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So Remick was a storyteller, musical storyteller as well.
Right. Yes. Yes. That's interesting, man. It's so much there. Cause see, I didn't think about that he was actually a
Hmm.
musical storyteller. I mean, he gave us a little taste of it, with him and the little
Hmm.
band he created with the banjo and stuff.
And he said he learned how to play that banjo for the movie.
Wow. See, that's
Yeah,
commitment to the craft.
that's commitment.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
commitment. And in the scene, tell me if you got this or you got something else. Remember in the beginning with Sammy, after we see him picking cotton and all that stuff, and then he
Hmm.
did his share. He kissed his mama, and then he goes in the house and tell his siblings to get up. Mama said get up, and then
Yeah.
he opened like the back door, and all you saw was like the field and land, and he was like shaking his head. Like to me, that scene was like, yeah, it was like him thinking to himself like, I got. It's something out there for me.
Yes. I
Like
think
it's so much more than just this
yeah, I
for
can
for
see that.
me.
I didn't
Yeah.
think about that during that scene, but I can see that now.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think again, Miles Kiton, he did a great job embodying that character because Sammy was slightly complex too because he was a young man trying to come into his own and trying to break away from what his father maybe wanted for him. He
Hmm.
wanted to go ahead and explore his own life, and then he didn't even really want to listen to Smoke. Smoke pretty much put a gun to his face.
Right, right.
Like if you try to stay in this life, I'll kill you right where you stand. And he's like, well, go ahead and do it. I mean, because I don't want to be under my father's, I don't want to be in the church
Yeah,
pretty much or the way that my father wants me to be. I want to use my gift and do what I want to do, how I want to do it. And I think ultimately that's what he ended up doing.
yeah,
We see old Sammy with his own little club. He went on ahead and did what he wanted to with his music. So, I
yeah,
think he was a slightly complex character in that he just really wanted to, come into his own and kind of blaze his own path. I personally feel like, if I experienced that night, I'd probably just be going back to church and staying, because that was a wild night for a young man. So
right.
I
Like,
really,
put down the guitar, Sammy. I'll be like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
but yeah, but
seriously,
no, but he didn't put it down.
yeah, he didn't put it down.
But yeah, and this I like how Ryan wrote his character too, because with any good protagonist, there's a conflict.
Exactly.
And of
Yes.
course his conflict is like what you were just saying is like, do I, I want to sing. I want to sing this type of music. I don't want to
Yeah.
sing that type of music. I want to do things on my own. So that was like, the church and doing his own thing. That was like
Yeah.
his inner conflict.
Yes.
And like you said, after that night,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have nothing to do.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this film because it definitely reminded me of the Quentin Tarantino George Clooney film. I forget the name; it slips my mind right now. That vampire film where they're all at a bar and
Not from
Dun-
dusk to dawn.
Dust of Dawn. Yeah, it
Hmm.
reminds me of that. I mean, of course, this is to me much better, but
Yeah,
it's just the fact of just getting trapped in a place overnight and getting attacked by vampires. I I just enjoy that because it makes for quite a scary night when you think about it.
yeah,
You don't even see that coming. You're just trying to hang out and have a good time, and you're introduced to some vampires. So I think that's a
it
good little thing to
was.
have. So yeah, yeah,
And the a little Easter egg, a little fun fact. The production designer, set designer, she's a black woman.
hmm
Hannah Beachler or Betchler.
yeah, yeah. I know that name. Yeah,
Beachler.
yeah,
She's an award-winning set designer, and she
yeah.
said that there were tributes to Chadwick um, and Wakanda in the set. Like the first scene was when Sammy and his dad was in a church, and you see it's the rafters. It's an X,
Oh wow,
and
I
that
gotta look
was
for that.
yeah, and that was a tribute to Wakanda and Chadwick.
Hmm.
And I thought that was very that was sweet. We still miss Chadwick.
Very much so. Oh, very much
Yeah,
so. He's a great actor. Um,
great actor.
let's see. I read one that Hannah Beachler also said she's she was saying that the three crosses that Sammy and Jebediah are standing under in the church stand
Mm-hmm.
for the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And as they are shown standing under it, they are the Father and the Son. And so they're the fourth cross in that scene is what she was saying. And then when Sammy walks in holding the bit of the guitar, he walks directly under the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And Beechler says she wanted them between that and it to be a kind of a juxtaposition to this veil that's been opened, and they're standing in this very spiritual stance together. She says, where Sammy has a decision to make, and also the crosses are exactly 33 inches apart, which is the age and the symbolism when Christ died. So
Mm-hmm. Yep,
this
I
is some,
did. I heard
yeah,
about that one too.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that everybody has these little things that they do, from the the set designer to the director,
The
you know,
costume again. He's
costumes.
working with Ruth E. Carter.
Oh yeah, she's
Yeah.
amazing. The Oscar award winning Ruth E. Carter,
Yes.
Academy Award,
Yeah,
definitely.
because
So
I was looking at a video of hers and she had two of her Oscars in her background. I was like, go
I
ahead,
love
Ruthie.
I love that.
And
That's
she's been
beautiful.
around for a long time. I've been seeing movies like from the 80s and 90s. I'm like, Ruthie, okay.
Wow, that is
I think she
great.
believes she done Do the Right Thing,
Oh wow, that's great. And I
Love
love.
and Basketball.
Mm-hmm.
This the name of a couple.
Yeah,
But yeah, the whole, like I said, this is so it's really layered.
yeah.
And one thing that somebody said, I was watching a YouTube commentary.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying again, I think I mentioned like how Ryan is really in tune with us owning our own,
Yes.
and they're saying that they get the feeling that Ryan was saying, hey, things were better when we had our own, like before
Yeah.
segregation.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
But
That's the message.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had another little fun fact.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. So when the Smoke went to town, when he first went to the town to see about the chose,
Mm-hmm.
it was a song playing. Because again, I was like, okay, what this song mean?
Yeah.
So it was called Wang Dang Doodle was playing, and I looked it up, and Wang Dang
Mm-hmm.
doodle back in the time meant a good time, especially if a guy come in from the south.
Mm-hmm.
Wang Dang meant to having a ball and a lot of dancing. They
Mm-hmm.
called it a rocking style. So that's what it's meant when people said to Wang Dang Doodle, because that's what they were going to do at the joint, jute joint,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
have a good time. They're going Wang Dang Doodle,
Wang
So
dang doodle. That's a funny term.
it is a funny term. I mean, that was like a real song.
Yeah, yeah, that's hilarious. It's a lot of I think little nods to different like songs from that era, and the Delta blues scene. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's great. There's just a level of research and just forethought to a lot of what we're seeing in this film is alone is a lot to be admired there. Because you're kind of getting a little bit of like a history lesson on some things, that we've
Yes,
never,
you do.
yeah, you've never thought about. Because I don't really listen to blues or anything, and you kind of get like a little history here within the film, and it's kind of fun to kind of break some of that stuff down.
It is fun.
Yes.
And I did. My grandmother loved the blues because my grandmother is actually from Mississippi. So she
Oh
was
wow, nice.
from Tupelo, Mississippi,
Yeah.
and she moved to Detroit when she was 18.
Wow.
And she loved the blues. I mean, I was like 8 years old, listening to the blues. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the blues.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I can blues is like country, we it's
Yeah.
telling stories.
Exactly. Yep. This is telling
Yeah.
stories, and I love that. I think that that's beautiful, and that's it's one of those musical genres you wish we could protect, but everything is taken. So yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Right.
I love this one piece of trivia that I found on IMDb. It was saying that it's significant that Smoke's birth name is Elijah, the prophet who foretold that King Ahab and Queen Jezebel would be killed and that the dogs
Mhm.
would drink their blood. Stack's real name is Elias, and it
Mm-hmm.
simply is the Greek version of Elijah. The two brothers are indeed reflections of one another in every way, not to mention that at his moment of doubt, Elijah was told that he would see God, but instead of seeing him in a fire or wind, found him in voice. Likewise, Sammy's name is concurrent with Samuel, the prophet who made and then brought down the first Israelite king, Saul. Samuel's career as a prophet began when he heard the voice of God. So those are just interesting little things, especially with the
Yeah,
similarities.
I did. I did. And I talked about it in my general review
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
because like you said, because back in the Old Testament, because both prophets was like you said, Elijah and Elias, which
Yeah.
also was translated Elisha.
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
Elijah, you know,
Yeah.
he was the one that he didn't see death.
Yeah.
He was caught up, because in the world, he was caught up. He didn't see death. And Elisha was his like mentee.
Yes.
The guy
Yeah.
was like, show him the ropes. And he was like really reluctant, like, I don't want to what.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was so Elijah was doing this is I went to Bible school, BTC back in the day. So this is
Yeah.
like my Bible school coming out.
Yeah. Nice.
So, Elijah was doing all he could to Elisha was like trying to get him away from him. But Elijah told Elisha, like, if you see me,
Mhm.
get caught up, then you can have like a double portion of my anointing.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I found that I like, okay, he
Yeah.
playing with the Elisha biblical theme here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
yeah.
also you think about, because I know that Kugler talked a lot. I really enjoyed his Breakfast Club interview, and he's talking about,
Oh, I missed that one.
you should check it out. It's really well done. But he's talking about the whole thing between twins, and
Mm.
a lot of that is what he tried to put in the film. That connection, and it's a beautiful way he describes it, because if you look at the scene where because we don't get any emotion out of Smoke throughout the entire film.
Until
Only,
the end.
well, definitely the end, but when his brother gets bitten by Mary and he tries to kill Mary and all that, the emotion that we see when Stack is laying there dying, and the things that Stack says to him, like, I love you, I'm scared.
Yeah.
It's like he was his protector, because
He's always been.
he's his
Yeah.
protector, and he just was devastated, and even when Stack came back to the door after being a vampire and is like, come with me, we do this together. He Smoke was almost tempted to
Right.
kill.
You see him take a step.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it was just the power. You think about smokestacks, those come in pairs sometimes, two smokestacks.
Mm.
It's just a lot of little things about twins there, and it kind of shows in the film. And there's a lot of subtleties that show the strength of their relationship as twins. And because I mean, even at the end when Buddy Guy, or the older Sammy says,
Mhm.
"Hey, do you remember the last time you saw the sunrise or something?"
Mm.
And he was like, "Yeah, when I saw my brother."
Mhm.
I'm like,
I think
man,
I think I cried at that scene too.
yeah,
So
that's what I'm saying, for real. I love that scene because it's like, yeah, he really loved his brother, even as a vampire.
yeah.
That's the last thing he remembers good about his life.
Well, but we see that he couldn't even kill him.
He couldn't even kill him. He couldn't, and because his brother told him leave Sammy alone,
Yeah.
and that's what he said at the end. And when you think about it, Kate, being a vampire is a bit of a punishment, right?
Yes.
So Annie and Smoke, they got to pass on naturally and die. And see, that's the thing. I read that Annie's character really wanted is like, make sure you kill me. I don't want to be a vampire because I got to go see our baby. And that was her thing. And so then at the end, we see as Smoke is transitioning after that fatal gunshot to the side, he gets to go be with Annie and their child, which is a
Yeah.
beautiful scene.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, tragically, Stack and Mary, while they get to be together ultimately, they're kind of in torment. I mean, because they're vampires for forever.
Forever. They get to see
You know,
everybody they love die. They're no
exactly.
longer around.
They're no longer around. And see, it's interesting, Kate, because I think Annie's character really knew that. She knew the torture of that, and she didn't want that. She was like, "You kill me right away." You
Right.
see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, it's just a powerful scene of what is natural versus what is unnatural. A natural
Mhm.
death, the way God would have it, is the way that it should be, and these
Yeah.
evil things that, talking about, eternal life in that perverse way as a vampire, we see in that film is not quite what we would desire. It's not what you
Right.
think it would be. And see, and even Sammy said that, because Stack whispered to him, he was like, it smells like you ain't gonna be here much longer.
Right. You don't have that much time
You
left.
ain't got that much time, but I could give you eternal life. And then
Yeah.
Sammy's like, nah, man, I think I've seen about enough of this place. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? At his old age, because Buddy Guy's like 88 in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know that scene is the first scene they shot for the film? That scene in
Okay.
the in real life, when they were doing the film, and Buddy Guy stayed on set for 12 hours. He's just sat there and wait. And I think in the deleted scenes, he actually has a lot more dialogue.
Okay.
But they cut it out. So I really want to get the version. I really want to get the collector's version. It's completely sold out. It's in the metal tin. It's completely sold out. So I'm gonna keep looking for it. But it has 19 deleted scenes.
Oh,
They might be
wow.
on. Yeah, it might be on the Blu-ray version. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. And if I find anything or hear anything, I'll let you know. But
Yes, please.
everything's sold out. All the pre-order stuff, everything was sold out
Dang.
before it even came out. So, but yeah, I would love to get a hold of those 19 deleted scenes, because we get a lot of the story that
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't in the film.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I used to love like the DVDs.
me
I used to
too.
watch the commentaries and
Same
stuff.
here.
Oh my God,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you get to hear the filmmakers talk about it, but like you said, a lot of the other deleted scenes,
Yeah.
ties in with the
Yeah.
story,
It helps
but
the story.
fortunately, because of time and all of that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's and two in that scene though, the last ish scene when
Mm.
Stack and Mary came, when the bouncer or whoever that was told Buddy, well, Sammy,
Yeah. Yeah.
some people want to see you. I don't know if you noticed, but it was like red lighting, and in that
I didn't.
like that in that
The
little
doorway
hallway
area.
there, in the
Yes. Yeah.
doorway, yeah,
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
so yeah,
That was a creepy looking scene, because it's like
right,
it made it kind of scary for them to come in, because you really didn't know what they wanted to do the
right.
scene. So
But
yeah.
yeah, but this, and I can see why some people didn't like it,
Mhm.
because of that one scene that we didn't talk about, where we didn't talk about it in length, where Smoke just got all of the Klansmen. That was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody was
That
all
was a powerful
clapping.
scene. Yeah, that was a powerful scene. I mean, we don't get to see stuff like that in film very often,
No.
and I think it just makes a statement to our rage as a people at the audacity of another group like that to inflict the level of pain that they have through the years. I think
Yes.
that scene is the answer. That's what I took it as.
Yeah.
Just the audacity to think you can just always come to us, steal from us, take from us, and then try and kill us.
Right.
And it showed that I love how he really outsmarted them. He
Hmm.
Smoke really outsmarted them, and he was prepared for them
He
ultimately.
was
So
prepared.
mm,
Him being a ex-soldier and all.
yeah, yeah,
And because he had PTSD and all that, and it
yeah,
was hard. He couldn't roll up his own cigarette because Stack had to roll it up for him.
yep,
And
yep,
when Stack wasn't around, that's when he was like smoking the pipe.
yes,
And um so yeah, so I can see why a lot of people didn't care for the
mm,
movie because of that
yeah,
scene. I'm like, oh well. But and
yeah,
with Ryan again, so adamant about black ownership,
yeah.
I was glad to hear about the deal that he struck with Warner Brothers.
Me
Like
too.
after 25 years, he gets the ownership, he gets the
Ownership.
rights
I love
to
that. Yeah,
the movie, and they said that's like not even
yeah.
heard of,
It just does happen. A few filmmakers have been able to do it, but generally the studio doesn't want to do that, because they want to make, if they give you 90 million to make the film, they want the right to distribute it for however long they want. And it's like, and plus he got his point or his payment up front for him and his cast,
Mm-hmm.
when usually you have to wait for ticket sales and
Mm-hmm.
everything. The studio makes their money up front, and then
Right.
after you pay them back, then you start getting paid. But he got the deal in his contract where we get paid first, then y'all start making y'all money. Then after
Right.
25 years, I get it back. And that's his legacy for his children,
That's his legacy. Yep.
and I think that's a powerful statement as a filmmaker, as an artist in these
Yes.
times where case so much is getting taken from us, and then like a lot of your black artists are selling their catalogs, the musicians are selling their
Yeah,
catalogs. A lot of black filmmakers do not make what they deserve off of their films. Black actors a lot of times are probably not getting paid what they should get paid.
most definitely.
All of this is it's a very motivating and great statement to be made
It
in this era that
is.
we're in. When you're talking about intellectual property and just protecting your stuff, that you created, I
Yeah.
think I really respect that.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
overall, this movie was so good. And
yeah,
if they don't hate, I can see most definitely him getting a nomination for best original screenplay and
I
maybe
agree.
even winning it again if they don't hate.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I would hope so. I hope nominations come for costume design and cinematography also. I
Yes.
hope
And
they at least
even the
get.
sound.
Yes, even the sound. The sound
Hmm.
editing was beautiful. But yeah, I hope they at least get nominations or nods in those areas. But yeah, best screenplay would be very nice to see. I
It
agree.
would. And and best director, I hope he, even though, it has not been a black director to win an Oscar.
Yeah, and that's crazy. All the
That's crazy.
contributions. Yeah, all the
That's
contributions.
crazy.
Yeah, and you can't get that. Yeah, so but he, regardless of any of that, he's and filmmakers like him are still celebrated in the community and they're respected, and we want them to keep making good content and inspiring other filmmakers the way that they do. So I celebrate the work that's been done here. I think it's a phenomenal job, a great achievement, and I love the attention that it's gotten. Also, it's gotten a lot of good attention.
Yes.
It got a lot of critics, but it's gotten a lot
Yeah, it's
of good
got
attention.
critics. Yeah.
Yeah, everything has critics. So
Hmm.
but I mean it comes with the territory. So
Yeah. And he did a great job, not just with the film, but even at the box office. It's,
yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. I could sit and watch it again right now and just kind of break it down some more. So I'll probably end up doing that again soon.
right.
Because it's just that good.
It's that good. And some people, I think it's one of those films either you like it or you don't. Because I know some people who
I
didn't
agree.
care for it. I know some
Yeah.
people who said that they heard that other people said, but the musical montage was corny. I'm like,
Oh
if
wow,
they think it's corny, like you don't have no clue.
man,
You have
that's one of
no
the
clue what's
greatest.
going on.
None whatsoever. They're just totally not tuned in because that for me is one of the best scenes in film history. Now, one of the best,
Same,
very well done.
same,
Yeah, I don't know.
same. Not just for the visual
Right.
of what's going on, but again,
Yeah.
just how it was just shot. It was just a
Yeah.
single. Oh my god.
And the
Yeah.
historical significance of it. I mean, the statement that's being made there, I mean, it's too significant to just blow off. I mean, it's
Yes.
really, really well done. And I see what he was trying to do there. We all see what he was trying to do there, and he achieved and he
He
accomplished
achieved
what he was.
it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, I really enjoyed it. Now I really appreciate this discussion today.
Me too. And Ryan Coogler, if you ever see this,
Yeah, right, right.
kudos to you. Congratulations. This
Yeah,
was a masterpiece.
it's a
Thank
master.
you for having this within you and bringing it out to life.
Yeah,
Because again, it made me feel this movie has really made me feel,
yeah.
and I appreciate that.
Hmm.
And I like when that happens with art,
Yeah, definitely,
regardless of what it is.
definitely. Yeah,
Yep.
I
Do you
agree.
have anything else you want to say, Alex? Or are you good?
Oh no, I'm good. This has been a great time, and I look forward to more good discussions like this.
Yes, most definitely. So, if other things come about, because you, my fellow movie nerd, we
Yeah,
know we can sit and talk about movies,
definitely,
all day. But
definitely.
I thank you for being my guest today and
You
talking about Sinners. Again, you guys, if you have not seen it, why are you looking at this? No.
right.
But if some people, I can hear about a film that I haven't seen and it won't spoil it for me because I like to actually see it how it
Yeah,
comes about.
Yeah.
That's just me. Some people don't do spoilers, but I don't mind them.
Yeah.
But again, it's streaming now on Max, and I think they're about to go back to
Mhm.
HBO Max. I'm like, come on,
Mhm.
y'all.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but so it's streaming on Max. If you
Yeah.
have not seen it, if you're thinking about watching it, go ahead and watch it, and then come back to this video and comment and let me know what you liked about it, if you liked it, and what's your favorite scene if you have one. And I just want to hear from you. And go and Alex and I have a video here on this channel where he was a guest, and where we talk about our top 5 Stephen King movies turned books turned to movies. So that was a
Mhm.
good discussion as well. So,
Yeah. I
and
was fun with that.
I'm gonna bring that back too. So again, you guys, thank you for watching Talking Flicks with a Chick. I am Kalani Harrelson, and thank you for indulging with us as we talk about sinners. And you guys have a great day.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
For Robert Lee, Lord, in that